They say it's better to go 3-0 than to give up 3 points to the LA Rams. Well, I don't know if they say it. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me making something up. I don't know. But the Eagles did defy a calamitous start to the first half, let Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts, and roared back in the second half, scoring 26 unanswered points, and thanks in no small part to 2 blocked field goals, including a walk-off blocked field goal returned for a touchdown by Jordan Davis, the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the LA Rams with a final score 33-26. Welcome to the Birds Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. You want to talk about flipping the script here? Because the Eagles quite literally did that in this game. The game opened up with an interception by Zach Baun, and it led to an Eagles touchdown off the tush push, going up to a quick 7-0. Now at this point, if you went into a coma, you missed nothing notable in terms of Eagles offensive production. The Birds had 4 straight 3-and-outs, and they allowed the Rams to score 19 unanswered points in the first half. The Eagles went in the locker room down 19-7. And something that I had hoped was going to be a pace setter for the game in the Zach Baun interception turned out to be a bit of an anomaly in the first 30 minutes of play. Now, one reason for the offensive sputtering was likely due to the fact that the Eagles lost Lane Johnson to a neck injury. Now, Lane did tell Jeff McLean of the Philadelphia Inquirer after the game that it was a stinger and that he would most likely be back in next week against the Buccaneers. But the Philadelphia Eagles don't exactly have the best track record without Lane. The Eagles are actually 15 for 23 without him all time. Now, Matt Pryor came in to replace Lane Johnson and did not really impress. Pryor did get beat out on at least 2 sacks of Jalen Hurts during his time in the game, including one that was caused by a miscommunication between him and Saquon on blocking assignments. But there were plenty of other reasons why the Eagles' offense sputtered. The Eagles kept with a very conservative play calling scheme. Again, not impressive. And it also had the Eagles in weird situations where they were running the ball on third down with 2 sticks. And that's not a really good look. That's a really poor play call in that situation. And usually the Eagles did not do so well. The Eagles, again, 4 straight 3-and-outs. The Eagles had just 33 total offensive yards in the first half, netting 34 rushing yards and netting -1 passing yards, which is absolutely abysmal. The Rams had shut Saquon Barkley down this time after getting blown up by him in their last 2 meetups. Saquon had just 13 yards on 7 carries in the first half. Also missing from the first half, A.J. Brown, who was on the stat board by the time the first half concluded, but he was only on there because he was targeted for a pass. He was targeted once with 0 catches. And again, the concerns about A.J. Brown not really getting the kinds of targets or the kinds of catches or the opportunities that he should have as the number 1 wide receiver on this team was starting to bubble up some concerns. Meanwhile, in the first half, the Rams offense was cooking. The Rams had amassed 212 offensive yards in the first half alone, most of which came off of the run for them, 115 rushing yards. The Eagles' defense had some trouble stopping them with lots of field position left for them to go, but once the Rams got into the red zone, the Eagles were usually able to cause their drive to sputter out, forcing them to rely on their kicker, Joshua Carty, who made 4 field goals. Now, obviously, that stat is going to come into play later on in the game, but for the first half, Carty was actually the MVP for the Rams. In addition to his field goals, he also had a penchant for pinning the Eagles deep in their own territory during the kickoffs. The Eagles' worst starting field position was at their own 9-yard line, and there were a lot of handling snafus by Jonathan Mechie. The Philadelphia Eagles special teams unit needs to work on that because the Eagles really should be starting out closer to their own 30 on a well-executed kickoff return. The first half ended with the Philadelphia Eagles getting booed as they were going into the locker room, and rightly so, I would point out. But when the Eagles came back out, they were the epitome of this saying that if you don't like how the table is set, you turn over the table. Once the Eagles came out, it was a complete role reversal, right down to the opening drive turnover, I might point out. A Jalen Hurts fumble deep in Eagles territory, mostly caused by Matt Pryor getting beat, led to the only Rams points of the second half. It was one play, one pass, one touchdown. The Eagles then, on their next offensive drive, made two very obvious changes to their scheme. First, they put Fred Johnson in a tackle in place of Matt Pryor, who, with Johnson in the game, actually allowed the Eagles to kind of settle down a little bit. Now, Nick Sirianni was asked about this, and he had this to say after the game.
Man, what a great trade by Howie, huh? Like to get Fred here, and I just know that Howie is relentless in what he does of always helping this football team get better. He saw a need for us, what we needed with Fred there, and went out and did the things he needed to do to get him. I'm so appreciative of Howie and having a partner in this thing that, you know, I feel like I'm relentless. I know he's relentless, and just having a guy that you trust so much there. And Fred did a great job, just like Fred did last year in certain situations, to come in and play meaningful football. You know, it took a couple of series to go there. We had played some things with right, left side as far as that goes with where they've been training. But offensive staff, Stout, Kevin did a good job of saying, hey, you know, Matt Pryor is very important to this football team and the things that he does. You know, Fred maybe give us a better chance right now, and making that change. That's hard to do sometimes, and I credit those guys a lot for that change.
The other key for the Philadelphia Eagles offensive scheme to change was starting to drift more away from the run and more towards a scheme that I'm calling Target A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown finished the game 6 catches on 10 targets, which means that he caught 2/3 of the balls thrown his way in the second half. He was targeted 9 times. Jalen Hurts was 4 for 8 in the first half with a passer rating of 56.2. Jalen Hurts finished the game 21 for 32 with a passer rating of 117.4. All 3 of the Philadelphia Eagles' second half touchdowns came through the air. One of them came to Dallas Goedert, one to A.J. Brown, and one to Devontae Smith late in the game. Now again, going into this game, I talked about the importance of the passing game, play calling, getting off to a fast start, turnovers, and mid-game adjustments. Passing proved to be hugely important for the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon still finished with a meager 46 yards on 18 carries. The Rams had invested a lot of resources in the offseason to stopping the run, and they were successful at it for the most part in this game, especially as it related to Saquon. As it came to play calling, once Jalen Hurts was allowed to take the game on his back and was able to use his own legs or his own decision-making in the passing game, things turned around quickly, and that was due to Jalen Hurts doing Jalen Hurts things. Both teams came up even in turnovers. While the Eagles did get their fast start, it did fizzle quickly, which led to the importance of making the mid-game adjustments, especially on the offensive side of the football. Usually we talk about it on the defensive end, but the offensive side of the football was the side that really needed the most mid-game adjustments. So every single one of those keys got a little bit of a touch over the course of the game. Now, as for the Eagles' defense kind of got a better hold on what the Rams were throwing at them, even if the Rams were still able to generate some positive offensive success. Matthew Stafford did finish the day 19 for 33 for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Williams, their running back, had 20 carries for 94 yards. Corum, another running back for the Rams, had 8 carries for 53 yards. So the Rams were able to continue offensive production, but it was definitely a lot more curtailed. The Rams finished the first half of the game with 212 total offensive yards. They finished the game in total with 356 net offensive yards. So it was not quite as productive of a second half, which again is a testament to the Eagles' defense there. But even with all of these things going in the Eagles' favor, it was looking like it was going to be too little too late until the final few drives. The Rams did get into field goal range. Joshua Carty lined up for a 36-yard field goal, and then Jalen Carter got his hand on it, and it was blocked, and the Eagles were able to take over, and this led to the Eagles' go-ahead touchdown to Devontae Smith with just 2 minutes left to go. Again, off of a drive that did have a lot of field to work with, but Jalen Hurts did Jalen Hurts things, and the Eagles were able to march down the field, able to churn up a lot of clock, and were able to get the go-ahead touchdown. The problem is the Rams did have one timeout and a little bit over 100 seconds left in the game. So that was plenty of time for Matthew Stafford to get the Rams into field goal range. The Eagles were only up by a point after a failed 2-point conversion. That's exactly what happened. Matthew Stafford got the Rams into field goal range, and Joshua Carty had to line up for a 44-yard field goal. Now, Carty had made one earlier in the day that was from longer distance out, so he definitely had the range. So, barring any freak thing with the wind, it was not looking good, and the Eagles potentially could have come away with their first loss of the season. But then Jordan Davis got in on the special teams action. He blocked Joshua Carty's kick, and he returned it 61 yards for a touchdown as time expired. It's the first time in 17 years that the Philadelphia Eagles blocked 2 field goals in the same game. Now, Davis, whose top speed on that return reached 18.5 miles per hour according to Next Gen Stats, talked about the block after the game.
You know, it came down to just the technique and the fundamentals of everything. A lot of people look at field goal block as just another play, just another down, put your hands up, get off the field, check a box. But the way we talked about it on the sideline, we knew, especially off his last kick, we knew his angle. We knew his launch point when it's at the 30-yard line, somewhere around there. And we just hit the gap, put our hands up at the right time. And then I seen the ball on the ground, and then at that point, I knew it was a no-my situation, but we just took off from there. I wanted possession, so I wanted to make sure that we ended the game right. Didn't know I was going to go that fast. Didn't know I was going to make it all the way to the end zone. Just started running, and my legs carried me from there.
So yes, there's a lot to learn from this game. Offense, defense, special teams, all facets of the team can learn from the performance in this game. But one big takeaway I do want to point out here is that for the last week, Jalen Hurts has been catching a lot of flack for not being an elite quarterback. Jalen Hurts is absolutely an elite quarterback, and the dichotomy in the performance between the first half and the second half absolutely proves that. Because once Jalen Hurts took the team and the offensive production on his shoulders, and he was able to do the things that he needs to do, and he was being animated and talking with players on both sides of the football on the bench and really just doing the things that he needs to do as a leader, he is able to empower the Philadelphia Eagles team to do pretty much anything, including surmount their largest point deficit since 1988, when the Philadelphia Eagles overcame a 20-point deficit to beat the Cowboys at the Vet. So, again, huge. Now, again, is there plenty to clean up? Absolutely there is. There's lots to learn from before the Philadelphia Eagles visit the perennial thorns in their side in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they'll do next week. But for now, the Philadelphia Eagles are 3 weeks in, and though the games haven't been pretty, the Eagles have found a way to win each of them. They are 3-0 to start the season for just the 6th time since 2000. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. What stood out to you about the game? What are your big takeaways? What are your areas of concern? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage, and if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles!